In this video, I'm going to be showing you my Annihilation Legions list from the Necrons faction. Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. So in this video, we're going to be doing the Annihilation Legion list. It's going to be 2,000 points. It is just my list, as all the other ones, exactly the same. So your feedback would be appreciated. If we can upgrade the list, yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think. Before jumping into this list though, another quick word about our sponsors. We've got Tyrannid dice, we've got Chaos dice, we've got Chaos Blood Splatter dice, we've got some Templar dice, we've got some Slaanesh dice, and these are my favourite, these translucent Canoptic Scarab dice, see-through dice. They are beautiful. If you want to get hold of some of these, head on over to the Baron of Dice, and there's plenty of others on their website. Planet 40k is the discount code, so make sure you are using that on your checkout. Okay, Annihilation Legion it is then. We've got the Annihilation Protocol detachment rule, so destroy occult units and blade ones get to reroll their charge roll, and if you're targeting units that are below half strength, you're going to get a +1 to the charge roll. That part's a bit meh, whatever, right? Don't really care too much. And also, furthermore, each time a destroy occult unit makes a ranged attack against the closest eligible unit, you're going to add 1 to the AP of the weapon. It's one of them, innit? It's one of them where you kind of shrug your shoulders and go, well, could be better. Maybe a +1 to hit would be nice. Reroll 1s to wound would be maybe nice, but adding 1 to armor, whatever. Okay, so that's what it is anyway. Let's start this off then with the Warlord. It's going to be number 1, Scorbit Lord, the first Scorbit Lord of the list. 80 points, of course, but we've got the enhancement Soulless Reaper, which is probably the pick of the bunch for 20 points. You put this on your Scorbit Lord, and anytime an enemy unit just tries to fall back, you roll a d6, and on the 3+, they can't fall back, and they must remain stationary. So they can't move at all. Now, that's good because the likelihood is we have charged them. That's what we are going to be doing. We're a melee-based faction, mostly, predominantly. This is melee-based. I say faction, detachment is what I really meant there. We're going to have a lot of Scorbit Destroyers in this list, and the Scorbit Lords leading them. So we want to be in a fight. If we've charged them in our turn, it means we're going to be fighting first in their turn, because defenders fight first, and then you rotate, or alternate. So we want them in the fight. Even if we do fight second, it's not always the end of the world, because maybe you're coming up against a melee enemy unit. It could be like a gunline unit. It could be some, I don't know, Hellblasters or something. So even if they do slap you a little bit, they're just tickling us really. Once we get our hyperphase weapons in, we're probably going to murder them. So that's Scorbit Lord, the first one of the list, and in fact we should probably talk a little bit more about him. They're nasty, aren't they? Nasty infantry characters providing lethal hits to the unit, as well as the mortal wound bomb as soon as we've made the charge, which that is quite decent, you know. It's really good because it doesn't matter what the toughness is, doesn't matter what the hit save, mortal wound bomb, lovely stuff. Now, Scorbit Destroyers are going to be re-rolling 1s to hit as well, and potentially all the re-rolls to hit if you're charging in that turn, in that phase. We've got a re-rollable charge, don't forget, with the detachment roll, so they all synergizes quite nicely. Now, there is some further synergy with plasma sights as well, but that's more to do with devastating wounds. Lethal hits and devastating wounds, I know they don't quite go together, but it doesn't harm, it doesn't hurt us. Just remember though, even though the Scorbit Lord is toughness 7, he will drop to toughness 6 while he's with the bodyguard unit. Okay, on to the second Scorbit Lord of this list. Again, it's 80 points, and again there's another enhancement here. This was because I had 10 points spare, so we're going to just throw this in. It's the Ingrained Superiority, and it's basically when the unit makes an attack on a critical wound, improve the AP by 1. I mean, it can be okay, it can be effective with a lot of attacks, which they will be, so it does work sometimes, but it's not one that I would use or pick out often. But when you've got 10 points spare, you may as well spend it, right? It's for free. So yeah, that is number 2, exactly the same as before. And then we've got the third Scorbit Lord in this list. Now this one is just box standard. There's no enhancement, had no points left over. So yeah, we've got 3 Scorpic Lords, and we probably should mention some stratagems as we go. So maybe we'll talk about the Murderous Reanimation at this point. I know you could use this with any Destroyer Cult unit or Flayed ones as well, but we may as well bring one out here because we've not brought a stratagem out yet. So this is in any of the fight phases, and you can basically, as soon as you destroy the enemy unit or you've got them below half strength, when they weren't below half strength originally, you can reanimate. So with the Scorpic Lord's Mortal Wound Bomb, and then all the attacks, and then the Scorpic Destroyer's attacks, lethal hits, maybe Devastating Wounds, rerolls, and all that stuff, all that jazz, you're probably going to do one of those 2 things. And yeah, you can reanimate if you need to. Okay, so that's the 3rd Scorpic Lord, 3 out of 3. Next we move on to the 4th character within this list, and I've gone with a Locust Lord with the Overlord's Blade, or the Lord's Blade, I've still not changed that, and the Resurrection Orb. My trusted Locust Lord, I have this guy in most of my list now, as you've probably seen from previous videos. We do need some ranged output within a melee detachment. So of course we're going to have either Locust Heavies or the standard Locust Destroyers. Now, why I like having the Destroyers or the shooty Destroyers in the list is we want to get units below half strength to open up our detachment role, but also it makes the stratagems much more usable. Because some of the stratagems relate to not being at full strength, not being at half strength, and so on. So it does help, it does assist, and also we do need a bit of impact from range. We can't just rely completely on melee. What if your opponent decides to completely screen off their entire army? You're going to have to fight through it, and it's going to take 1-2 turns to get there, and then another 1 or 2 turns to get through the wall before you even get to the juicy stuff. So you do need some shooty stuff to open up the gaps, or shoot beyond the screens and shoot into the distance at the enemy units that are behind the screens. So yeah, these are going to massively help in this kind of detachment. Now the 5th character within this list is a Hexmark Destroyer. I've always loved Hexmark Destroyers in 10th edition, as you guys know, but I've not managed to put them into my lists as often because I've gone with too many characters. But in this list, I've managed to squeeze one in because there's not that many Destroyer leaders, and I don't really need any of the other ones. I don't think I need Catan. We obviously don't need Overlords and Cryptex and things. So I've gone with the Hexmark here. We're going to need some secondary scoring, and he's great because of the Deep Strike and the Lone Operative, and yeah, all round cheap, good, does a lot of secondaries. You can't really go wrong with the Hexmark Destroyer. So that's the 5 characters that I've gone with in this detachment. Let's move on to the other units. Is there a battle? No, there's no battle line units. Flayed ones kind of should be battle line units within this detachment, in my opinion, but they're not. Whatever. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, would it? So we've gone with 2 units of Flayed ones. They are 5-man units. I probably should put that there because it doesn't say that. But yeah, these are my turn 1 distractions because they've got the Infiltrator's ability. So they're going to be getting deployed into the no man's land, providing that they're 9 inches away from enemy models and the enemy DZ. Now what you would hope to pull from your secondaries deck are cards such as Area Denial, maybe Secure No Man's Land, Extend Battle Lines, those kind of cards where you do need something in the centre. And yeah, you might not make it with your Scorpic Destroyers. I mean, you might do, you don't know. But Flayed ones are pretty much going to be there if they deploy there with the Infiltrator's ability. They are going to die, but if they do get charged, then you're giving your shooty units a target early on, because otherwise everything's going to be hidden. And it's also going to be giving your Scorpic Destroyers a bit more time to move up the battlefield if your opponent is being distracted by these Flayed ones. Because when the Flayed ones do hit, they do hit pretty well. I'm not going to go through all their melee stats because I never really get to fight with them. They're just there for some points and then they die. But yeah, they do count towards a detachment roll, as well as all the 6 stratagems, which is kind of good if you need to use them. Okay, on to the shooty stuff then. We've got the 6 Locust Destroyers, which will be accompanied by the Locust Lord. So they're going to have the 5+ critical hit rolls with their lethal hits, as that's a really good trick. It's a really good tactic, and they get to re-roll hit rolls of a 1 against the closest eligible unit and get to reroll all the hit rolls if the enemy unit is on an objective. So you'll be fishing for the lethals. Even if you roll a 3, just roll it again. You're going for the lethal hits here because they are much more valuable. But yeah, these guys are brutal. You can cover the no man's land area. They don't need to be on the objectives or within the no man's land. Just need to cover it. Have eyes on the objective so that anything that walks onto the objective to try and score them, we can shoot them down. Remember the detachment roll as well. If you're firing at the closest eligible unit, you're going to get an extra bit of AP. So that the Ghost Cannons will go from -2 AP to -3 AP. Space Marines are not going to like that because that would put them on a 6+ armor save. Of course, there is cover potentially, but they would have got that anyway. Now, speaking of stratagems, this one doesn't necessarily work for the destroyers, what I've got on the screen now, the Sport of Frailty, but it's what you would use on the unit afterwards, if that makes sense. So what you would do is you'd shoot with your Locust Destroyers first, knock the unit down to below half strength, or even below starting strength, because below starting strength you're going to give the unit that uses the stratagem a +1 to the hit roll, so that could be some Scorpion Destroyers potentially. But if you get them below half strength, you're going to add 1 to the wound roll as well, almost guaranteeing that you absolutely slaughter whatever you charge into. So yeah, I would use the stratagem with the unit that's going to need it, but you need to unlock it really with your shooter units. I hope that makes sense. I know I've gone a bit reverse with that. So yeah, that is the first shooter unit. The next 3 units, it looks huge on the screen, doesn't it? I've gone with 3 lots of 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers with the Ghost Destructors. We need some anti-tank, and yeah, what's better than 9 of these guys? These guys are nasty. Strength 14, -4 AP, the damage is 6. The closest eligible unit is going to be -5 AP. So that's only going to really work against models that have got a 2+ armor without an invulnerable save. But that's still fine. Otherwise they'll just have no save or the invuln saves. And they've got lethal hits and heavy as well. So you could be hitting on 2s and yeah, lethal. Out of the 9 shots, you would hope 1 or 2 would be a 6 for a straight lethal hit. But you don't necessarily need it because it's strength 14. But yeah, that's a lot of wounds there. There's a lot of shooting power, and you can have it from 3 different locations if you spread them out. But you do need to guard them. So yeah, 165 points per unit with the Ghost Destructors. Next, we've got another chunk of 3 units, all the exact same. It's the Ophidian Destroyers. The Ophidian Destroyers, 3 lots of 3, 80 points per unit, and each one comes with its own plasma sight for devastating wounds. If you do get into a fight, that is. Not the way I tend to use them. I use them more for scoring, very similar to a Hexmark Destroyer. And they're able to tunnel out. At the end of your opponent's turn, you can use your Tunneling Horrors ability, come off the battlefield. You may end up going back into the same place, but it's better to keep them out because you don't know what your cards are. Because you're going to pull your cards on your command phase, if you've got any cards to pull, that is. And if you start pulling a card that requires a deep strike unit to get to that location, well, you've got one in the bag now. And potentially you've got a few here. So it's always worth pulling them off, unless they're on a primary objective and you need them to be scoring that primary objective. That's when it becomes a different situation, because you'll throw away your points for that primary. So yeah, we've got 3 lots of 3. In fact, we probably should speak about something else here. When you've got 3 lots of 3 of this unit type, as well as a Hexmark Destroyer, that's a lot of deep strike units, that's a lot of flexibility with secondaries. You could potentially go with fixed objectives here, and you can go with behind enemy lines and establish locust. If you can get 2 units behind enemy lines, I believe it's 4 points if I'm not mistaken, and establish locust, you're also getting points. I can't remember how many points you get off the top of my head now. Should I check that? So yeah, you're going to get 4 points for the behind enemy lines with 2 units behind enemy lines in the enemy DZ. And then if one of those units does the action, establish locust, you're going to get another 4 points. So from 2 units alone, you could be scoring 8 points. And if your opponent can't deal with them, then they're going to come off the battlefield and pretty much do it again. Now, of course, against certain factions, that's not going to work. Shooty factions that like to stay back, it's not going to work. There's no space there. But in other situations, there's going to be plenty of room. Next, we're coming on to the big bulk part of the list, the Scorpion Destroyers. we've gone with 3 units here. 180 points per unit. That's going to be 18 Scorpet Destroyers. Each unit's got 2 plasma sights. That's a lot. That's a decent amount, you know. There's a lot of melee in there. There's a lot of... We've already kind of mentioned the synergy with the Scorpet Lord, the lethal hits, the re-rolls to the hit rolls, potentially the devastating wounds with the plasma sights, the re-rollable charge rolls, and of course there's a lot of stratagems that would apply to these units. And we're going to go over the rest of the stratagems now because they kind of all do relate. Masks of Death, a -1 to hit them. I think this is where you would use that stratagem because this is the bread and butter of your list. You want the Scorp Destroyers up and running for as long as possible, so -1 to hit is decent. You've got Insanity's Ire. If you lose a model, you can make a normal move as close as possible to that enemy unit. Now that's kind of what you want to do. Unfortunately, it doesn't put you within engagement range because it is just a normal move. I believe it should put us into engagement range. Most other factions have abilities like that. Blood Surge, the Termagants have it, and why can't we have it? And we're paying CP for it. We should just jump into engagement range, but that's not what it is. But getting closer does help, especially like turn 1. If you get shot from afar, you then move your guys forward, make a normal move 8 inches, and then when it's our go, we're moving again 8 inches and then charging, so maybe it actually benefits us in that way. And then the other one, which is Pitiless Hunters, where you can add 3 inches to your piling or consolidation move. Well, piling and consolidation move, in fact. So you're going to be doing 6 inches rather than 3, which is a large amount. It really is a huge amount. Could get you onto objectives if you do it correctly. You can't go swinging around like the old days with the merry-go-round. But if you're clever enough to do the move with all the moving shenanigans and pilings, you can still kind of do it. You still have to go closest to closest and all that stuff, though. In fact, there is another one, Blood-Fueled Cruelty. This one is just after an enemy unit falls back, you can basically do a mortal wound bomb. On a 2, 3, 4, or 5, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they suffer 3 mortal wounds. And then your unit can make a normal move, but must move as close as possible to that enemy unit. Again, not within engagement range, which I find really frustrating. Why not? Just a normal move there. So yeah, 18 Scorp Destroyers. We mentioned the synergy. It's hard hitting. There's a lot of melee attacks. And they're going to cleave through a lot of stuff. And with 18 of them... you can expect some damage. Anyway, that's 2,000 points in a nutshell. If you want to improve my list, let me know down below how we're going to do it.